of this year's rally. It really has been a very, very strange day in many ways, but some remarkable events, and we'll bring you all up to date with that. But we're going back to the beginning of yesterday, initially with the special stage number 16, which was held on Dovenant 1. Remember, the situation at this point in the rally was that Colin McRae was leading by 1 minute and 16 seconds after 2 days of the event so far. Carlos Sainz was leading in second position, and Juha Kankkunen in third position. Down in 17th place, or in fact having worked up to that place from 94th after earlier incidents, was Didier Auriol, the man who was going for the championship but who seemed to have lost any hope of taking the title, with problems on the first day, hitting a rock, and on the second day as well when he rolled his Toyota Celica. Well, this first stage of the third day was a very, very muddy stage indeed, and in fact the conditions very wet and muddy throughout the course of much of this rally this year, and perhaps affecting quite a lot of the tyre choices and things as well. This first stage was taken by Juha Kankkunen, the brand new Celica, proving its worth once again, with Didier Auriol trying to work his way back up into the top 10. He set the 7th fastest time, but Carlos Sainz, his main opposition, had set the 2nd fastest time, only 8 seconds slower than Juha Kankkunen. Colin McRae was saying that he was missing his sleep a bit at the moment, but apart from that, he was having very, very few problems with the Subaru Impreza, and looking very good indeed to continue at the lead. Kankkunen said that he was very confident that he could regain the time that he had lost the previous day. The battle in Formula 2 was really developing well, with Tommi Mäkinen, the man who was expected to go so well in the Nissan, having to chase after Gwyndaf Evans. Evans was in fact the leader of Formula 2 after the end of the second day, and in Group N, Johnny Milner was the man leading the category after a series of fastest times. Timo Mäkinen chasing after Gwyndaf Evans, trying to make up the 16-second deficit, and in fact it wouldn't be too long before he was able to overhaul the car of Gwyndaf Evans. David Llewellyn not quite as quick as those two, but certainly not far off it in the Vauxhall Astra. On to special stage 17 then, the Hafren stage, and McRae saying that this is his first proper few stages in Wales for a long, long time. And once again he cited the main problem being the mud, which was very soft on the top of the surface but very hard below, and once again it was making tyre choice quite difficult. But once again the Pirellis that Subaru were using seemed to be the best suited tyres to the conditions. McRae set the fastest time on this 17th stage, a fastest time by 11 seconds. It was all looking good for the man who's twice previously won the British Rally Championship, but has never yet won the RAC Rally. Well, Carlos Sainz still putting in some very, very quick times himself in the second of the Subarus. He took the equal second fastest time over this 17th stage and continued to hold on to second place overall. 1 minute and 26 seconds behind McRae, but fairly happy with his position up in the top 3, the vital position that he would need to take in order to take the 1994 title. Juha Kankkunen in the Toyota Celica, this new car, this very much more powerful version of the Toyota Celica. New shape, the high rear wing as well, and it's certainly going very well on the stages of the Network WRC Rally. He was indeed second, equal fastest over this 17th stage, and that confidence that he could make up some time certainly didn't seem to be misplaced. But on the other hand, he didn't seem to really be able to go any faster than Colin McRae particularly, and really not faster than Carlos Sainz either. Bruno Thierry was continuing his very, very impressive performance in the Escort Cosworth. 5th fastest on this stage and 5th on the stage before as well, and certainly enjoying himself considerably, as he was telling all and sundry who cared to ask. His best results so far this year have been a 4th place on the San Remo and 4th on Argentina as well. But bearing in mind that this is his first RAC rally, it really was going very well for him. Malcolm Wilson, well, at this point in the rally he was setting the 4th fastest time and was holding on to 5th place overall. And meanwhile Stig Blomqvist was also part of that little quartet of Fords that were holding on to positions 4 through to 7. And the very experienced Swedish driver was once again looking set for a fine finish. Didier Auriol, well, we might have expected him to be setting the fastest times at this point in the rally in his attempts to try and close up, particularly to Carlos Sainz in terms of the championship, but that wasn't to be, and in fact throughout the day Didier Auriol was setting 6th and 7th fastest times throughout, with Carlos Sainz really proving to be the faster throughout the day. On to the start of special stage number 18, and Colin McRae ready to take the start of this Brekfa stage. Four-wheel drive traction proving vitally important away from the line, and once more McRae was into his rhythm. The third day of the Network WRC rally was really the key day in many ways for Colin McRae. He'd never managed to get past the third day in the last 4 years, certainly not as leader, at least. Always problems intervening, whether they be accidents or mechanical problems, and McRae was just hoping that he could make it through to the end of this vital point of this rally. Carlos Sainz still pushing hard, and in fact he went on to take the fastest time on this 18th special stage. A very impressive performance for the man who really at this point was looking more at staying in the top 3 than trying to close up the gap to Colin McRae. Kankinen back out and looking to try and close up that gap a little bit more, but once again it wasn't to be. He was 3rd fastest over this 18th special stage, a stage that would be interrupted later on in the proceedings after an incident involving a spectator. Unfortunately, the South African Jan Habig just clipping a spectator as he went past, the spectator standing in a fairly risky position and ending up with a broken leg, so he had to be airlifted off to hospital, and that meant the cancellation of the rest of the stage. But that was only after the top 12 cars had gone through, so most of the top drivers were able to establish their times and set a quick time over the breakfast stage. On to special stage number 20, and Colin McRae once again dominating proceedings. Still keeping fairly relaxed, still indicating that it was all going fairly easily, and certainly it appeared that way. Carlos Sainz holding on to his position just a little bit behind. The lead of McRae's had grown and then reduced again, and it was at 1 minute and 39 seconds at this point in the rally. Characteristic popping from the exhaust of the Toyota Celica, a noise that we've grown accustomed to over the last few days of the RAC rally, and very much the nature of the Toyota's 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Bruno Thierry attacking the forest stages with real relish, really thoroughly enjoying himself. And the Ford Escort Cosworth perhaps not able to match the performances of the Subaru and the Toyota on this event, but still not far away. Malcolm Wilson, while he would have problems on this particular particular stage, he actually slid wide into a ditch and lost nearly 3 minutes in the course of that, and that would put him behind Stig Blomqvist, dropping him down from 5th place into 6th position. Ari Vatanen holding on to 7th place. He set the 6th fastest time of this stage and the 5th fastest on the previous stage. So he said he was going slow and steady. He reckoned that at my age you can't do anything else, but he was still putting in some very impressive performances. Oriol still trying to close that gap up, but still not really setting the fast times that we might have imagined him to be. We really might have expected him to be setting the fastest stage times all the way through the day, but to a certain extent perhaps deciding that he would be a little bit more careful. So the next regroup and the chance to compare notes and see how everybody was getting on. Kankkunen still trying to close up that gap, but some perhaps poor tyre choices through the middle section of this day cost him some time, and it meant that he dropped further back from the 2 Subarus ahead of him. On to Hafren 2. And once again you can see just how muddy the conditions were. These conditions really were repeated throughout yesterday's stages, but it certainly seemed to play into the Subaru Impreza's hands. Kankkunen was able to set the fastest time on the last stage of the day, just as he had on the first stage, but in between times that lost time through perhaps poor tyre choice had cost him some time, and in fact on the end of this Hafren stage he ended up with a jammed throttle, which also didn't do him much good in trying to close up that gap. Bruno Thierry, no such problems for him, and the car running very reliably indeed. The other Ford Escorts in trouble earlier on in the week, Francois Delacour being excluded and Mickey Biasion going out with fuel feed problems. Well, no such troubles for Bruno Thierry, who just keeps on putting the times in. Wilson with the rear brakes alive, but with those problems. It was a shame that he dropped down behind Stig Blomqvist, perhaps just attacking a little bit too hard. Oriol had now worked his way up the order, and he was up into 9th position at this point. In fact, he would end the day in 9th place, but only a few seconds behind Tommi Mäkinen in the Formula 2 category, and with every chance of climbing up into the top 10. And if he could get that vital 7th place, then it would mean that the Subaru team would have to give team orders, and Colin McRae might have to drop back behind Carlos Sainz if Sainz was to take the championship. In Formula 2, the battle was still very much on, but Gwyndaf Evans had been passed through the day by Tommi Mäkinen. Evans reckoning that Mäkinen must have been completely crazy with some of the stage times that he was setting, and Mäkinen in fact worked his way up into 8th place overall. David Llewellyn was in 13th place at the end of the 3rd day, and the leader in Group N, Johnny Milner, once again setting most of the fast times during the day. In terms of the World Championship, Jesus Puras still in with an excellent chance himself of taking the Formula or the Group N title, with the lady driver Isolde Holderried just behind Jesus Puras. There was no way that she was going to be able to take the title away. And so on to the start of today's activities and the very opening stages that were held once again in Wales. The first stage of today was the Dyfi stage, and immediately it was causing dramas and action. In fact, the Panpertog stage, the first stage of the day, and the fastest time going to Colin McRae and Derek Ringer once again. 4 seconds fastest over the opening stage of day 4. But incident already on this first stage with Carlos Sainz coming across some logs on the track that had been placed there supposedly by perhaps some spectators wanting Colin McRae not to have to be given team orders by the end of the day. With Oriol moving further up the order, that was looking more and more likely, but obviously no excuse for anyone to try and change the outcome of the rally. In fact, it didn't cost Sainz too much time. He cost him about 7 seconds, but Dave Richards, the ProDrive team boss, certainly saying that it affected his confidence and upset him quite a lot. No other major dramas on the opening stage of the day, but the battle for Formula 2 still continuing. Tommy Mäkinen now with a bit of a lead over Gwyndaf Evans and looking to try and hold on to that lead through to the end of the event. Well, it was all just about to hot up and the real action was about to begin, and we're going to bring you that action in just a moment after the break here on Eurosport. Holding. Didier Oriol attacking hard and thinking that he had absolutely no chance of taking the championship as we went into this final day. Even if he got up into 7th place, he thought that team orders would intervene and then there really would be no chance at all for him. But it was all to go wrong for Carlos Sainz.
No, la cagamos, dale.
That was the moment that cost Carlos Sainz the 1994 World Rally Championship. He lost 34 minutes in the attempts to get him out of the ditch. Spectators helping him. Kankkunen was one of the cars to go past, and so was Didier Oriol, who of course saw that Carlos Sainz was off. In fact, Didier Oriol had an off himself. He said his concentration was affected by seeing that, because he knew that with Sainz out of the top 3, it looked very likely that he would be world champion. Well, indeed, Sainz was withdrawn from the event after that particular off, and it means straight away that Didier Oriol has become the 1994 champion. But what it also meant was that no team orders now would have to come into play, and it would mean that if Colin McRae could just get to the end of this 4th day on the Network WRC rally, he would indeed become the first British driver to win it in 18 years. Kankkunen had seen Sainz go off as well. He said he saw a lot of people trying to help. He said, "I'm not too sure how hard they were trying," bearing in mind that they of course were perhaps fans of Colin McRae. He said, "I thought of stopping myself and pushing him in a little bit further," but team support didn't quite stretch to that extent. Bruno Thierry continuing in his fine way, 4th fastest again on this particular stage, and no such dramas as affecting the Spaniard Carlos Sainz. It really was a great shame for it to finish in that way, but well, Sainz making the mistake, a very costly mistake it has proved to be, and perhaps indicative of some of the other rallies this year where in just the closing stages Sainz has perhaps succumbed under pressure, and it's been Didier Oriol on several events this year who has really been strong in the closing stages. Stig Blomqvist actually set one of the fastest times on one of the stages today. An excellent performance from the veteran, and he no doubt will be delighted with his performance. The 28th stage went to Stig Blomqvist, the Klokkaenog West, and for Ari Vatanen it's been another very consistent run. Man ending up finishing in 5th place at the end of the rally. An excellent performance considering his entry was only entered a few weeks before the event itself. A very much a late entry, last minute. He really didn't know he was going to be in it. Well, for Didier Oriol, after the tremendous disappointments of the opening 2 days, suddenly his fortunes changed with that off for Carlos Sainz. Didier Oriol managing to finish in 6th place. It really didn't matter, because with Sainz withdrawing, Oriol automatically became the new World Rally champion. And a deserved effort. He's won 3 World Championship rallies this year. That's more than anybody else by 2. No one else has won more than 1 rally this year. A great performance from the Frenchman. fine chance to watch the reigning world champion at work on a rally which he has declared is not his favourite. But for once, the Network WRC rally has come to give him something that he so desperately wanted, and that is a world title. The battle for Formula 2 honours has continued throughout the day, with dramas particularly for Gwyndaf Evans' main opponent in the Formula 2 category, Tommy Mäkinen. Mäkinen actually rolled his car just a few metres away from Gwyndaf Evans' home, which is just by the side of one of these stages. In fact, Evans himself has gone off there in the past. Well, on this occasion, it was Tommy Mäkinen's turn here in the Nissan to go off and roll just outside Gwyndaf Evans' home, and that lost him around about 5 minutes. It also meant that a steering arm got damaged, and it actually broke on his way to the next service halt, which caused him a bit of a problem as he then had a little off on the link road between the next two stages. Gregoire de Mévius has done enough, however, today with David Llewellyn by finishing well up in the rally. In fact, de Mévius ending up third in Formula 2, with Gwyndaf Evans able to take the victory in the end, and second place going to Tommy Mäkinen. Third and fourth positions for the two Opel Vauxhalls of Gregoire de Mévius and David Llewellyn, enough to give GM the Formula 2 manufacturer's title. And Johnny Milner taking the win in Group N. He was second